Recorded live in New York City, the writing capital of the world. Welcome to the Virtual Writers Room with Israel Savage. So we're introducing ourselves, saying where we're calling from and what we like about that location.
I am calling from Greenwich, Connecticut. It's so gorgeous. I love the nature aspect of Greenwich. It's literally every fantasy writer's dream come true.
I'm calling from my office / game room. This little corner right here is my office, got my desk and everything, and my dream catcher. Yeah, I come here just to do like script writing and kind of just paperwork, that stuff. And at the end of the day, when I just finish that, I could just flip over the couch and then go to my TV screen right there.
Oh wow, you got everything there. You're just missing a little mini fridge.
That's pretty sad, actually. I was actually in the car boot today, and I did pick up a mini fridge. So,
well, look at that. Well, a mini fridge and a bedpan, and you're good to go. You don't have to leave that spot.
From Harlem, New York City. I'm a big fan of plants, so I have a big, lovely window here, and a lot of plants back there, and that's Harlem. So, hello.
Here we go. Hi, everybody. How are you? I am calling from Cambria Heights in New York, which is not that far from JFK. It's right on the borderline of Nassau County and Queens. So I'm like right near Long Island. And I actually really love it. It's a really beautiful, predominantly, we're actually all African-American community. It's rather affluent African-American community. So it's something that I'm kind of like really proud of, really. And I really enjoy it. There's a lot of history here. And I'm right adjacent to where they used to call the Black Hollywood, where a lot of famous Black people used to live, like James Brown, Lena Horne, Jackie Robinson. I used to live in St. Albans, so that's kind of like where I am.
I'm calling from Chicago. There's a lot to love about Chicago. There's always something to do, and you can always find something to do. That's what I love about it.
The other thing I love about Chicago is the fact that we know exactly how much we have to bribe our politicians in order to get something done here. So it's most other cities, you're clueless, but here in Chicago, it's $10,000 to start.
I'm from Nigeria, and I'm currently in Lagos, but I actually live in London. You took mine. We know how much we have to bribe our politicians with as well.
In London or in Nigeria?
In Nigeria.
Okay.
All right, and we're over to the gentleman with the hat that's askew, just ever so slightly. So we're sharing where we're calling from and what we like about the place we're calling from.
That's actually the first time I've ever heard that word. So
Sure.
Excuse me.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. I like that.
I am from the Bronx, and I like that the young lady with the #1 album in the country right now, Cardi B, is from the Bronx. So be careful about sleeping on this little borough in New York City. It's like the most neglected borough in New York City, but yet greatness continues to come from this place. So we are the greatness that makes the city.
I also live in New York City. I love that it's almost like having a dozen, maybe even 24 little countries in New York, because if you go to a different borough and even different neighborhoods within different boroughs, such different personality. Do you know I have been horseback riding on the beach in the Bronx? And you would think, what? And the horses probably were thinking, what? This month, our theme is getting started. I thought it's springtime, it's new beginnings, so getting started. How do you get from that blank page to actually writing something down? I had one of my coaching clients text me, and she said, I've gotten through this first scene, and I just feel stuck. I don't know what to do with this next scene, where it should take place, what characters I should have in it. I wrote the first scene, and now how do I start this new scene with new characters? And that can be a stumbling block, especially if you focus on the stuckness of it, instead of where we found the inspiration to begin with. And so I thought we would capitalize on these 3, 6, 7, there's at least 8 great minds here. I'll bring at least half a great mind. So we'll say 8.5. Let's go around, and I'd like in just a couple sentences I'd like to hear how you get started. Now, there's a lot of ways to get started, and I try different things on different days, and different things work at different times. So what's just one way that you like to get started, whether it's writing a sketch or stand-up material or a screenplay? What kind of works for you? What gets you in the mood to write?
Music, simply music. Just try and find the right muse for the right mood. Like, if you write a comedy, just try and go, like, just whatever works. Like, just try and find the right style of music that try to get your blood flowing, get the brain active.
I love that suggestion. And one of the things I'd like to toss out there for you, if you haven't tried this, before you start a project, whether it's a sketch, but especially if it's a longer project like a novel or a screenplay, spend some time thinking about how it feels. What's the tone of that screenplay? And put together a playlist that reflects the tone or the feel that you want someone reading or watching that screenplay to have. And then each time you write, as part of your ritual to sit down, even if you don't feel 100% like writing at that time, sit down at your desk, put in your earbuds, or play that soundtrack. And what you're going to find is a lining up that happens, an inspiration. You're lining up with that same mood and feeling. And that can be a very efficient way to just click back in, sync back in with that inspiration.
So I like visualizing it almost. So I'll literally just, and it comes, I know this is a bit of a cliche to say, oh, it just comes to me randomly. But like, oftentimes I'll have watched a film or a telly show and I'll find myself visualizing a particular scene or like a thing a particular character will say. And it just sort of sticks in my head until I actually get it, and I make sure to get it down on paper and actually like get the ideas around it down.
Oh,
and then
great.
I just sort of build around it.
I love that. And what you may start to see happen as other people share is what we're really talking about are totems. Little things, whether it's a visual, whether it's a line of dialogue, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's a magazine clipping, a photograph, an image, where we have an emotional attachment to that that we can conjure, that we can hang on to as we write, something that anchors us as we write, especially these longer projects. One thing I want to mention, just to toss out there, if you've done at least 7 classes with us, we're starting a program in a couple months called How to Write a Screenplay in 28 Days. I know a couple of you expressed interest. So just make sure you private message me if you want more details about that. But a lot of these techniques that you're mentioning, when you do a longer project, are really essential so that you don't have to wait for lightning to strike, wait for inspiration. You can till the soil and prepare for inspiration rather than just waiting for it. Okay, all right, other ideas, other thoughts?
I really do like the idea of doing mundane activities. When I take my mind off something, that's where definitely ideas come for me. I like a steady time to write every day. I like consistency and structure. However, to take pressure off myself, I absolutely have ideas come, and then I act on those that are really vibrant, and those that aren't, I at least write them down. I definitely have a collection.
Yeah, I love both those. And so many times we try to pick a fruit before it's time. There truly is a time for everything. And when it's the time to write, and there's a time to just, again, till the soil. To really ask yourself, okay, what is it time to do right now? If it's not time to write, maybe it's time to do the dishes. Or maybe it's time to just make my bed, because that takes a different type of brain resource. And while you're doing that, here's what happens. Here's why that works. Here's why doing a mundane task works. You're using a different part of your brain for that mundane task. You're not really having to access any sort of creativity whatsoever. And there's a momentum that you start to feel. Motion makes emotion. There's a momentum that you start to feel as you make the bed, and then you see, whoa, I just accomplished a task. Then you want to accomplish another task, even the tiniest little thing, and then another one and another one. And then that momentum turns into desire, and that desire can be enough to then do a creative task. It's like fuel. It's like money in the bank, a currency in the bank that you can work with.
I was going to say what helps me to write is a place of inspiration, just having a cool notebook on a cool desk with just like a cool view that kind of puts you in that mood almost. And just piggybacking off of putting the earbuds in your ear and just kind of getting into that mood. The feel, place, I think also has a little bit of influence on you as well.
Absolutely, 100% yes. Not all coffee shops are created equal. And it's important to know that. There are some coffee shops I go to do admin tasks. There are some I go to write a book. There are some I go to just to receive inspired ideas about my life. Every coffee shop affects me in a slightly different way. And you need to be sensitive to that and aware. Why make things harder for yourself just than necessary? So yes, 100% agree that environment is important.
I have one other thing. For me, deadlines are so helpful. I feel accountability when, I have a project that I know I have to write something. There's something about that timeline that it creates the fire that is not a pressure for some reason. It just, I don't know, I churn things out very easily.
One of the most important things that maybe goes without saying, but the subtext under what we're saying is metacognition, and that's learning how you learn best and when you learn best. And it changes. For some people, deadlines are great. And for some people, deadlines are great at certain times and then not great at other times. Sometimes deadlines can inhibit you. Have you ever had that paper that's due in college and, oh my God, I don't want to do it? And the closer you get to it, the worse, the harder it seems. And so truly depends. So know yourself, get to know you. Isn't it great that we have a whole lifetime to get to know ourselves? And if we're lucky, by the time we croak, we know a little something. And give yourself the freedom to know that, okay, my deadline is helping me. And by helping, I mean it's making me more excited and more focused. We're looking for focused desire. And so is the deadline helping me? And if the deadline isn't helping me, remember the deadline isn't in charge. You are in charge of the deadline. And so get rid of it. And sometimes if you get a deadline, if it's imposed on you by a publisher or someone else, you have to do a few mind tricks because the deadline's there. And if you don't feel good about it, if it's not helping, if it's hindering, if it's feeling like handcuffs, then you got to do a few mind tricks around that by not focusing on the deadline and focusing on one of these other things. Let me just take a day and go to the beach. And what you're going to find, similar to the mundane task, is that the inspiration starts to build, again, like money in the bank. Okay, let's see who we haven't heard from, because you're all writers and you all have fabulous ways and unique ways, or not unique ways that work for you to get started.
I found that when I first started this class, I definitely had a block. And for me, recognizing that little tricky little monster called fear, and just accepting, okay, this is fear. And what helped me move past it was really the stream of consciousness writing. And now I kind of look forward of making stream of consciousness writing a part of my routine, my morning routine, that is. And even in that, what I decided to do was create a space for the things I really love to do. And creating a space, wherever that space may be, like I said, maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's a park, a place at the beach. I heard earlier you talking about the artist date or writer's date. I started making a writer's date, and even if it's only getting one word on the paper, if it's authentic, it builds. And the more I've been doing it, because sometimes I'll sit there in my stream of consciousness writing, and I may only get one line out, but I'm so proud of that one line because I know it came from a place of true authenticity of something I felt I wanted to put on paper. And the more I create a space in doing that, what I'm realizing in my personal experience is that the space to write starts to naturally expand. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I want to go write. It's just keeping something available, because it definitely, I've heard Israel say it a lot of times about keeping something available to jot something down as you're going throughout your day. And I always say, oh, I'm going to remember it. And some of the stuff is so magnificent and awesome and incredible and funny and everything. And then I do forget. I was like, what was that? When I was standing in the grocery line at the Stop and Shop or wherever I was, or driving down Fifth Avenue. And so it does help to keep something available, whether it's a little notepad, a little card, a napkin, wherever you can write it down so you can refer. I mean, nowadays we have our iPhones and the other type of phone, Android, so you can just speak it. I have done that too in a memo. If something comes to you right away, just put it in a memo so you can write it down later and refer back to it. So those are the tricks I've been trying. And Israel's given us great guidance. Some of the things I've been doing too is acting out in front of a mirror. And it really does help. And imagining the characters and everything, really seeing it and feeling it. And so all of those things that I've learned here have been very beneficial and helped me to become a better writer.
And what ties it all together for me is finding the fun in whatever it is. And so you mentioned an artist date or a writing date. The idea is to do a writing, call it a writing date, if that is fun for you, if it's playful for you, if it takes the pressure off of writing, whatever. I must write right now kind of thing. Oh, I'm going to take myself on my time to just explore is what you're looking for, that freedom. Now, if the word date conjures things that are less than freedom for you, if the word date is not a fun concept, then don't use it. Find what works for you. Find whatever works for you. So finding the fun is the most important thing.
You know what I find to really help me is lots of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm joking. No, I'm joking. I don't do cocaine. I don't. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I never do cocaine because my nose is too large, and that is a very expensive. I can't afford it, so I don't care to.
I would write down every single morning what I wanted to do, and then how much better my life would be if I got all that done. So it's kind of like the goal-oriented stuff. But when it comes to like writing, I don't have any like specific time. And if anything ever came to me, like you folks were saying, I would immediately write it down. And I've always noticed when I do my stand-up comedy, whenever I'm traveling and I don't drive or I take the CTA, I always read everything that I've jotted down. And next thing I know, I'm writing down my stand-up comedy. So I've taken a little bit from everyone, but the one thing I don't always write down my goals every morning. And I'm going to start doing that again tomorrow morning. But the one thing I definitely have always done is if I ever got an idea, I write it down, I say it into a memo, or if I'm on set and I don't have that ability, I will repeat it over and over again. So I don't at least lose the theme of what I was thinking. So I really don't have much to add for everybody, but there's many different ways I get about writing, but I don't believe in writer's block.
I would agree with you on writer's block, although it feels very real. It does exist in a way in that as writers, we block ourselves. And so we can call that writer's block, but it really is a block that we have in our beliefs and our thoughts wrapped around that idea that it has to be perfect, that it has to be just right. So I would agree with you. It feels very real. It feels very limiting, like any thought does that is a limiting thought.
I don't know if it's a method or just how my brain is trained, but it's just any moment of the day, if I think something's funny or I have an idea, I just jot it down on my phone and I just write it or I email it to myself. And then I pick it up later on in the day when I'm off work. And most of my creativity comes to me at night, I feel like. Or that's majority of the time that I have, my free time that I have to write. Because during the day, my job pretty much consumes my life. But the evening time is where I find it. And it's usually just wherever, in my apartment, a coffee shop. Most of the time it's just in my apartment with some wine.
There you go. It pairs nicely with cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
If you liked the video you just saw, click on the link below to find out more about our virtual sketch writers room. You'll interact with writers from around the world from the comfort of your living room while you advance your professional writing career. For more information, go to instudios-nyc.com/VWR and MakeTVwithIN. We'll see you there.